See, I kind of remember.
No, go on. I'll just keep this in.
I was gonna say I remember why I always used to like recording like this because I can stay all cozy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of From the Fourth Line, presented by Offside News. My name is Emma, and I'm joined, as always, by my lovely co-host, Marcie. And we do have guests this episode. We just did a little bit of a parent-teacher interview type dealio, where instead of, forcing them to talk about Leaf games that they did not watch, we just had pre-recorded some segments over the weekend with a couple of the writers from Offsides and asked them for some opinions about some trades. We had Kasey back on, and also making their From the Fourth Line debut, we had Parker. It was great. It was so much fun. We got to talk about the New Jersey Devils, which we never do on this show. So those will just be like segmented in later. I will figure out the editing. Future me, it's future me's problem. I decided to do it. So I hope you guys kind of liked this way of going about covering the trade deadline. We were kind of, a little bit tossed up on how to do it in terms of the fact it's like there could be like 7,000 trades that happen, and instead of us going down through them one by one, because I don't know how much you would want to hear like a Leafs podcast talk about like Luke Kunin to like Columbus, but we've got options here. So I mean, I guess we can go right into talking about Leafs game, and then we'll talk about the deadline from a Leafs perspective, because we didn't really necessarily do that a whole lot with Parker and Kasey. We pretty much talked about every other team except for the Leafs, but
Yeah.
the Leafs were on Saturday taking on the Colorado Avalanche in Denver for their final matchup against the Avs this season. Yes. If I remember correctly. That is what is happening. Yes. Okay. So Anthony Stolarz gets the start as predicted, I think. I even said that last episode when we were talking about the game against Vegas. Just like, yeah, even though Stolarz like went in early after Joseph Woll got pulled, he's still probably going to start. Saturday, I was correct.
As always.
As always, and he's taking on Blackwood. Yes, that was the right goaltender, right?
Yes.
It was Mackenzie Blackwood and not Scott Wedgwood. See, the problem is they have both of those goalies now, which is just terrible for my memory on things. Yes, it was Mackenzie Blackwood. Okay. Anyways, never mind. Calle Jarnkrok comes out of the lineup as he slowly gets worked back in after missing basically the entire season. He is like a fun little bonus trade deadline acquisition for like free.
As a treat.
As a treat. And Nick Robertson. I wish we got Jason. Could you imagine if the Leafs got Jason Robertson? And Nick God. Robertson is on the fourth line. New additions who we'll talk about a little bit more in depth in a little bit, and kind of what the Leafs gave up to acquire them. Scott Lawton was centering Max Domi and Bobby McMahon on the third line originally, and then Bobby McMahon got switched up halfway through the game and got swapped with Pontus Holmberg up to the second. And Brandon Carlo was paired with Morgan Rielly as the second pair, with as McCabe and OEL were the top pair. That's your Kristianov was still out from this game. Hopefully he's skating a little bit more. Hopefully maybe he'll play tonight. I am unsure. If not, we kind of need him back before Thursday against the Florida Panthers. And that was your lineup update. But going into it, I feel like I'm going to just kind of talk about this quite a bit because you didn't stay up to watch the game.
I intended on staying up. However, I went for a nap and woke up 12.5 hours later the next morning. Yeah. I did mean to watch it, but unfortunately I'm just a sleepy girl at the moment. That's what happens when university starts kicking your ass.
This is what happens when you have to write a dissertation.
Don't.
Yeah, but so the Avs get the scoring done early, less than a minute in with Kushkin. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. But then don't worry, Mitch Marner is there with a great plays by Matthew Nyes to draw in the defense and gets the pass off to Marner, who, reminder, Mitch Marner has a wicked shot. I feel like it's one of those things that, like, I think some of it is because, Marner is definitely more so known as a passer or a playmaker in this league, and he doesn't necessarily always is scoring the most goals. He has a wicked shot. And I think that's like maybe he forgets how good of a shot he has, or he just forgets to shoot the puck. That's never his first instinct. But like when he uses his shot, it's lights out. I don't want to say lights out, but like it's great. It's a great shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. 10 out of 10. Then very shortly thereafter, again, Avs come back with the lead with again Kushkin, who, like, I mean, we could say comments about how he missed a bunch of the playoffs 2 seasons ago because there was a woman found in his hotel room in Seattle, but people don't like to talk about that. That tends to get swept under the rug, but I don't. Yeah. I will say, though, the Leafs did not have a morning skate before this game in Colorado, so it is not at all surprising that, it off the bat, Scott Laughton and Brandon Carlo just like a little bit shaky in the first period here, but like
who's surprised?
Who's surprised considering they arrived late last night, didn't truly get the full amount of sleep that they probably needed before a game, and then didn't get a morning skate with their new team. And so then, you're having to learn maybe a new system, or you're just having to get used to new line mates, or like how that communication is going to work and things like that, or different plays or whatever, especially because both guys were on the penalty kill as well. And I will say there were some times that, like, especially Brandon Carlo, apologies to Brandon Carlo. For context, Lon and Carlo are wearing 24 and 25 now with the Leafs. And so I very nearly cursed out Connor Timmins to my TV because I saw the 25 and I saw it like on a tall defenseman, and I almost started going like I almost started cursing out Connor Timmins to my TV when it was not Connor Timmins on the ice, because Connor Timmins is in Pittsburgh. But yeah, then John Tavares, man.
John.
And this is where I go a little bit more in depth about how much I love the pairing of William Nylander and John Tavares. If you were following me on Twitter during that game, I was a little bit more like analytical when it comes to like just the Leafs goals and stuff. I was like, oh, maybe a fun little thing for me to try out. I enjoyed doing it. I mean, because I have those thoughts anyways, and I think those I end up texting them to Marcie anyways during the game.
Yeah.
About things. And then but it was fun for me to tweet them. I hope people agreed with my analytical analysis of the Leafs. But William Nylander and John Tavares have this ability when they're together on a line, because John Tavares is so good at faceoffs and his ability to win faceoffs and win draws, especially. And William Nylander is so capable of making plays, and he's a very good hockey player. But like the two of them together and their matching, I don't want to say matching because they don't have the same skill set necessarily, but their complementary skill set of each other is really great in creating opportunities off of a winning face-off. And you saw that with this goal, where they were able to do that really well because it was off the draw. Puck goes back to Nylander. John Tavares loops around near the front of the net. William Nylander does what William Nylander does, where he draws in the defense towards him, gets the pass off to John Tavares, and John Tavares makes the shot into the net, and it's gorgeous, beautiful, fantastic. And you can see they've done it quite a few times this season, and especially like over the past couple of years as well. Just when they've been paired together on a line, you can kind of watch what they do off the draw. It's something, if you're always like, oh, what do you pay attention to, like, in order to notice these things? It's like, just watch what they do off the draw together, especially when John Tavares ends up winning the face-off and they're on the ice together. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. But yeah, then Marner also as well puts the Leafs ahead in this one. Once again, another brilliant shot by Mitch Marner. This one, he had way more time and space. It was just able to get it off. It was great, fantastic. He was all alone in there by himself. Not necessarily. I mean, he was at the face-off circle, but like this combined with Bobby McMahon's ability to win puck battles, and he did this one behind the net to get the pass to Marner, and whoop-de-doo-dah, Marner scores. But I will say, like, and yes, that is what goals are, is just watching the way that teammates work off of each other and they combine their combined skill set to win opportunities. That's exactly what an NHL goal like requires. But it is really interesting when you look at this game and you are like, yeah, that's what, like, those are the key parts of each of these, not necessarily for Marner because he doesn't really have a shot or whatever, but it's like you look at these key parts of these players' games and stuff, and you can kind of, it's fun to see how those things work together. Okay, I was trying to enjoy watching this game. John Tavares then off the power play, net front tip, John Tavares. Just in the way it's very classically John Tavares. And you could kind of, I don't want to say see the writing on the wall with this one, because despite the Leafs being up 4-2, they were getting outchanced quite often. And also as well, are missing Chris Tanev, who's a huge defensive addition to this team in the way of his abilities to block shots. And the Leafs were just getting outshot a ridiculous amount. And I think, if you put Chris Tanev in there, his ability to take those scoring opportunities by blocking shots is a huge part of his game and a huge part of what the Leafs rely on so that their goalies aren't getting shelled out every night. This is nothing against Stoller. Stoller's, maybe didn't play his best game of the season. He wasn't, absolutely lights out like he has been multiple times throughout the year, but he still provided the Leafs an opportunity to win. At one point in this game, it was, then it gets tied back up. There's, a series of 3 unanswered goals by the Leafs with Stoller's in net. But it comes off of multiple bad defensive mistakes by the Leafs. And so then at some point you have to go, okay, but like, what can you do? Mitch Marner takes a bad penalty. You put the dangerous Colorado Avalanche on the power play, where you've got, their power play as much as we were like, oh yeah, Team Canada's top power play unit is like a Chell, like it's like you're asking your 12-year-old to be in charge of your Chell lines. Yeah. Colorado Avalanche have a lot of players who were on that top power play unit for Team Canada at Four Nations. So, and you really get to see the full potential of Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar's speed, against you. And then they also have all these other fantastic players on their roster. So there was just, some of it was like, oh, there's probably a miscommunication there. There's probably something else there. So hopefully those kinks will get ironed out. This team will lock in and they'll get comfortable with each other. I know they were practicing yesterday and today before their game tonight against Utah. So that's my opinion on this game. Like in terms of that aspect, there was 2 empty netters as well at the end of the game. So like the 7-4 score looks way worse than it actually is. Really, at the end of the day, this score was 5-4. Now, when you look at the shots and you look at the chances, the Leafs were definitely not the best team there, but they were at one point leading this game. So you just got to, take the positives away from it. And, you're still in this. I mean, you do kind of then need to look into the future, and you've got some pretty big games coming up this week for the Leafs. You got Utah tonight, which you kind of want that win to really, get back onto the right sort of horse there. But especially because you host Florida on Thursday and Ottawa on Saturday. Those are 2 big games against division rivals. Florida, who's looking to pull away in the Atlantic, and Ottawa, who's fighting, every night, tooth and nail for that playoff spot for their first one in about 7 years. So there's really 8 years actually. Their last one was 2017. So you really have to sort of think about that for the Leafs going into this part of the schedule.
Yeah. you said it all. I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah, I did. I guess that also like counts as like a preview for the Leafs. I mean, I guess I will preview tonight's game a little bit more specifically for the Leafs in Utah. They're taking on the Hockey Club, Utah. They don't have a name yet.
No. Will they ever have a name? Who knows?
That's supposedly next season, apparently. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Joseph Woll is getting the start tonight against Utah. He's getting the start. Cal Yarncroke is coming back into the lineup in place of Nick Robertson on the fourth line. Still no Chris Tanev, I believe, if I remember correctly, from like the tweets from like, I don't know. Oh yeah, no timeline on Chris Tanev's return. He is skating today though, however. So maybe hopefully if he doesn't play tonight against Utah, he will be good to go for Thursday against Florida. Fingers crossed, because Florida's a scary team now. They're a very scary team now. So much can change in one deadline day, but yeah. You on Utah, if you wanted to watch the former Leafs, we've got Leafs legend Alexander Kerfoot.
Yeah.
My favorite teammate.
My favorite teammate.
The way that clip has like worked its way into our vocabulary as well.
It's so bad. I'll say it about like the most like stupid things where it's like, oh, I said it the other day when my friend like turned up and I didn't think she was gonna turn up. And I was like, my favorite teammate. And she just looked at me like, what the fuck are you on about?
No,
it's like
for me,
you wouldn't understand.
You wouldn't understand. Or it's like even like every time I see something about Alex Kerfoot, it's just like Kerf, my favorite teammate.
Yeah, it just pops up.
It's worked its way so much into like that everything. But yeah, so and then also as well, we'll have a show before the game on Thursday against the Florida Panthers. We'll figure it out. Which still it has been announced. It's been announced that Anthony Stolarz is going to start against his former team, the Florida Panthers. So that marks the first game out of 3 between now and the end of the season between Toronto and the Panthers. That's fine. Yeah, no, that's totally fine for how I feel about where the Leafs are in the standings right now. Yeah, cool. Thanks, NHL.
So fine.
One of them's in the span of like a week, I think, at the end. Like, yeah, they play like the second and then literally less than a week. They play Florida next in April. Oh, I just totally made my calendar hit my mic. I'm so sorry about that, guys. I'm not gonna edit that out. It's gonna stay in.
It's fine.
We're a professional podcast over here. Now we're gonna talk about the Leafs deadline moves. Can you tell I've been putting this off? Because I don't want to address it.
No, yeah, me neither. we could just not talk about it.
We could. But yeah, the Leafs acquired, obviously, as we've talked about them already, Scott Laughton and Brandon Carlo. So the Leafs went out, Brad Treliving went out there and acquired a third-line center. The third-line center I think we all thought we were going to get because Braden Shen was not happening. That price was just way too high. And then we got a big right-handed defenseman in Brandon Carlo.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, what we said the Leafs needed.
Yeah.
Is it not?
Maybe they've been listening to us. Do you think they're big fans?
I think they're huge fans.
Do you think they want the women want me Steve Dangle Fear Me sticker? Should
I
we
think
send it
Steve
to them?
Dangle wants that.
Oh, our best friend Steve.
I think Steve Dangle wants that sticker.
I think
Steve,
he'd.
if
I
you're
think he'd
listening to this
love
and you
it.
want that sticker, call us. We'll make you one.
We will make you one.
But yeah, so but to acquire Scott Laughton, the Leafs, that trade, I can pull this up. The Leafs, um, the Leafs acquired um the Leafs acquired Scott Laughton, a 2025 fourth round pick, a 2027 sixth round pick from the Philadelphia Flyers for a 2027 first round pick, which I think a lot of people maybe weren't totally comfortable in trading, but like also were willing. I don't know. I feel like I don't know how people felt about the 2027 first round pick. I know a lot of people were very protective over the 2026 first round pick, but that pick, and as well as forward prospect and fan favorite in Toronto, Nikita Grabenkin. So
give him back.
raise one up for check back check paycheck, an icon, the guy who winked at me during warm-ups of a preseason game in Ottawa, Nikita Grabenkin.
Oh my god, do you reckon he recognized you from the podcast? Emma, my
me and my
podcaster.
Joseph Wool jersey. Me and my Joseph Wool jersey. Fully winked at me, and then I got extreme side eye by Matthew Nyes.
Oh, that picture of Matthew Nyes is like just iconic.
Like, that's fantastic. It's a great picture, but yeah. Which my favorite thing is that like everyone was talking about like prospects that the Leafs will have to give up, and like no one ever threw Grabenkin's name around there, and I don't even say that as like an insult. I honestly am not that I'm saying I'm not surprised, but it's like the fact that the Leafs, because right, like always the like going rumor about the price for Scott Laughton would be just Scott Laughton, not the 2 extra late round picks, which is a fun little bonus. Thank you, Danny Briere. Would be a first and then a high chip prospect like one of like Callan Minton or Ben Danford. Whereas like Nikita Grabenkin makes sense for the Philadelphia Flyers more than those other 3 because he fills kind of the same role as not so much the same role as, I don't want to say that. He's a power forward. I was about to say he fills the same role as Fisherman. He does not, but he is a like a mid-6, bottom-6 like forward prospect. He's a power forward. He's also, I don't know if you knew that about Nikita Grabenkin, he's Russian. And what do the Philadelphia Flyers have right now that they're trying to help support and build their team around? A young Russian prospect by the name of Michkov. Matvei Michkov, who apparently is best buddies with Nikita Grabenkin by the sounds of it, or at least they're friends. And this isn't me going, well, Danny Briere got Michkov a friend. No, they actually do know each other because apparently all Russian hockey players know each other. Not surprised. But it is helpful because while Nikita Grabenkin's English is not 100%, I have a feeling it is slightly better than Michkov's in the way of like, it is helpful to have a line mate who's probably going to maybe play on the same line with you or maybe down the road or whatever, or be in that organization who can provide that like on ice translation or on the bench translation in terms of just like, here's this guy. So I like it as a move from both sides. It'll be sad to see Grabenkin go. He became a huge fan favorite in Toronto in his very short time up with the Leafs, but also when he was with the Marlies as well. He just seemed very well liked by his teammates and also as well from fans. He just seemed like a fun guy. The fact that he took a cab home from every Leafs game, like when he played, I was like, that's so fascinating.
I miss too, Emma.
But gonna miss him. I really hope and wish him the best for his career. We talked more about this trade a little bit, just more so in like the Flyers acquiring Michkov. Not acquiring Michkov, acquiring Grabenkin and trading Scott Laughton and stuff when we had Parker on. So you'll hear a little bit of that when we talk to Parker. That's going to just show up later in this episode. It was really fun to have Parker on, okay? If we had a budget, we'd mail all our guests hockey pucks in terms of tape on it. One day we'll get there. And like people who've just showed up on the show will get like a hockey puck. And
just like mysterious.
Mysteriously, I'll go to like
It just
Canadian
turns up in a
Tire and like
box
I just
on
got
the
hockey paper around. It
doorstep.
says, yeah.
Just in case you fuck.
The um the Leafs also as well. Another trade that happened was that the Leafs acquired Brandon Carlo from the Boston Bruins in exchange for Fraser Minton, 2026 first round pick, and a 2025 fourth round pick. Now, I should note, Scott Laughton comes with retention. He comes with like 15% or something. There's like retention there. I don't know the exact percentage. It reduces Scott Laughton's cap hit by like, oh, it's a 50% salary retained. So it reduces him to 1.5. And he's a UFA, not this season, but the end of next season. Brandon Carlo also, hold on. Also came with retained salary in terms of that was like 15%. So instead of a cap hit of $4.1 million, it's a cap hit of 3.485. And Carlo is not has 2 years left on his deal. So he's not the end of this season. He's not the end of next season. He's the end of the season after he's a free agent.
Mm.
Okay. Just gonna lay that out as to why you may be like, well, that's quite a lot there. It's like, no, you're not getting a rental. You're getting a player with term for these prices, which is big for the Leafs because it kind of then solidifies the fact, okay, this is your decor. Your decor solidified. You now have defensemen with term in terms of Tanev, OEL, Riley, Carlo, Benoit has term. He signed an extension last year. Myers has term. He signed an extension. So you have 7 defensemen with term who kind of build this core defense for this team, and you have all these other prospects that are in the works that, like, as guys older or injury or whatever, there's room to make some shuffles here or there. But next year, if the Leafs are still in a contending window, you're not going out and acquiring a defenseman. You are going out and maybe addressing some issues to your forward group. You don't need to touch your goaltending. Like, this team is slowly getting built out and added to from the net outwards, which is kind of been Brad Treliving's goal this entire time. You have really solid goaltending. You don't need to touch that. Now you have a really solid blue line. Okay, you don't really need to touch that. So now let's go out and maybe in the off season or whatever, you address that forward group. Then come the next deadline, maybe you have to make a move here or there for a depth piece or whatever you have it, but you may not have to. But even when you are making those additions, those bar something crazy that it's unpredictable, you're maybe only adding to your forward group. Looks pretty nice in terms of building something a little bit more long-term for this team. I love it. It does suck though to lose Fraser Minton to the Boston Bruins. Much loved prospect, much loved by us on this show. I've gotten to see him play in person a couple of times because I saw him in the preseason and then also saw him in Ottawa again against the Sens because he was called up for that. But truly, it'll be very weird to see him on the Boston Bruins. I really do hope that us sending another young prospect to the Boston Bruins does not come back to bite us in the ass like it has historically. We'll never forget about Tuukka Rask. That's for sure. Andrew Raycroft. Anyway, sorry. But yeah, and there goes your 2026. There goes your 2026 2026 fourth round pick as well, which kind of does suck to lose that. But I think the Leafs have made selections and can draft outside of that first round, and they've done it in the past, or they're even their recent first round selections have been like fairly off the board to the point that they probably would have still been available in the second or third round. So, it's one of those things where it's like Matthew Nyes was early second round selection, and it was their only selection of that. It was the early selection of that draft for them, and look at the way he's turned out.
Yeah, not bad.
Not bad at all, I think.
Can't complain.
Cannot complain about Matt. So it's one of those things where it's like, it's not like the Leafs are, people are like, oh, they're totally throwing away their future. They're not necessarily. You still hold on to Easton Cowan, see what he becomes. You still have, kind of a top defensive prospect in Ben Danford, who is turning into, at least in Oshawa, to be a very strong shutdown guy. Even, his offensive numbers might not be there, but he's garnering the reputation of being a very strong defensive player who has a lot of physicality to his game. So you're essentially building you're like creating your own Jake McCabe.
Build your own.
Which we've said before. I think I've said this before on the podcast, where it's like he's a like DIY Jake McCabe. But yeah, and of course, obviously, to make room for all of this under the salary cap, the Leafs did have to make a trade with the Pittsburgh Penguins, sending Connor Timmins and Connor Dewar in exchange for a 2025 fifth round pick. Man, you know what kind of sucks when you lose like your prospect and you're like bottom 6 blorbo in like one day?
It sucks.
It's terrible. As someone who's been a very big Connor Dewar warrior since before he came to Toronto, since when he was even with Minnesota. But I you know what? There was about 5 minutes where he was almost I thought he it looked like he was going to be a Boston Bruin, and I almost had an extreme crash out. Not on the internet. Just my text messages to Marcie for the second year in a row. Connor Dewar gets traded at the 11th hour on the trade deadline. And God. I have a crash out in Marcie's text messages about where he's going to end up.
At least you weren't sat on the bus in public watching all of this go down.
No, I was just home in my apartment on the couch with both my roommates home.
No, I was on the bus when I saw he got traded. The Mintz trade, the Connor Dewar trade. I was like, how publicly acceptable is it for me to sit on the floor of this bus and sob? And it still hasn't. What do you mean they're not Leafs anymore?
Yeah, I will say though, Kyle Dubas acquiring Connor Timmins is the most Kyle Dubas move to ever happen. For those who don't know a lot about Connor Timmins' career, he was a Sioux Greyhound when Kyle Dubas was the GM of that team. So Kyle Dubas is very intimately familiar with Connor Timmins. And so I am not surprised that when Connor Timmins was made available, Kyle Dubas was very excited to acquire him. Kyle Dubas is the most predictable man alive. Now, when it comes to Connor Dewar, it's one of those things where there just was not enough room. The bottom, and we've said this before, and I've said this in previous episodes, is there was a logjam created in the bottom 6 for the Toronto Maple Leafs. There were a lot of guys who could fill those roles, but you can't have 5 fourth liners, right? And that's the situation that the Leafs were kind of finding themselves in, especially with Calle Yarncrook returning from injury. And you have to then kind of make decisions on who you want to keep. And it became, I think, more so less of a thing of oh, Connor Dewar, you're not playing well, because he was playing fantastic. He's a great penalty killer. Pittsburgh, you're going to get a really great forechecker who is really aggressive on pucks and can kill penalties. In Connor Dewar, I won't comment on what you're going to get in Connor Timmins, that's for sure. But but when it comes to the fact of okay, so then you're having to go through and be where can we get cap relief? And some of that comes from you don't really necessarily want to get rid of Nick Robertson. That also doesn't give you the cap relief number that you want. But what about Pontus Holmberg? But Pontus Holmberg is filling a second line left winger role. So there's a bunch of this thought process that has to go into it. And I understand where the decisions were made. Am I a little bit upset about it still? Yes. Is it maybe making me feel a little bit better about that it's to a team that I somewhat enjoy watching, in terms of the fact that I've never hated the Pittsburgh Penguins because I love Sidney Crosby. So also yes. But and also, is it because I'm capable of being a rational human being and in my opinions about hockey? Also yes.
I miss them.
I miss them too. you know, it I think partly some of the reason why I think maybe it sucks a little bit more than it sometimes otherwise does with trades and things like that is you knew how like we not that we knew necessarily, but it's like we had an understanding of how tight knit that Leafs locker room was in terms of how much everyone got along and how tight knit that. So it was like it hurts a little bit more because you know that like you guys are losing friends and it sucks because you I don't know. I'm trying to be like we have empathy. We're humans, and also we liked the player. Like there's that as well.
Dude, because I keep seeing people tweeting videos of Fraser Minton, and it's making me really sad.
Yeah, I think some of that is like I think people need a week, and hopefully then people will get over it. I don't know. Maybe it's just one of those things where it's like I've experienced. This is maybe me being like I've been around forever. You know, like I don't want to be like superiority complex here, but like I think, you know, there's a lot of newer fans to hockey, which is great. And maybe this is one of their first or second like trade deadlines that they're experiencing. And this is the first time like a player that they've really, really liked has been traded away from their team at the deadline, which like sucks. I know the
Big
feeling.
time.
I was 11 years old when Phil Kessel got traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins on July 1st, 2015. Like I know.
You've
Trust.
been there,
I've
done
gone
that.
through all the stages of grief before, but like hooped up in an 11-year-old's body and brain. I did not handle it well. Um,
No.
so I very much do understand that like that feeling, and I think you know give it a week. I honestly already love Scott Laughton and Brandon Carlo. I think they're great additions,
Oh.
not just on the ice for the Leafs, but it's like Scott Laughton's a hometown kid. He's from Oakville. He spends a lot of time in Toronto during the summer. I have insider information on that one. He knows, you know, that, you know, he knows quite a couple of the guys on the roster as well already. So that's, you know, that's great. He seems like a great guy. He has 2 cats. Fantastic, incredible.
Yay!
Love that. Is a top tier social poster in terms of his Last Supper picture that he posted last week. Brandon Carlo already endeared me. I'm sorry, I'm being endeared by a 22-year-old man who's like 6'4". I believe that's how tall he is. Is that how tall he is?
It is now.
Brendan.
Congrats, Brendan Carla, on being assigned
Yeah,
6'4"
he's
by us.
6'5". Right, I've been endeared by this
So
6'5",
teeny.
28-year-old man.
So
Because he did one social video where I was like, whatever you say. I watched
like,
it. I was like,
okay.
whatever you say. I don't know. He came out of the gate and he was like, I'm really excited to play with Morgan Riley. And I was like, you should be.
Yeah, he's one of us.
I don't know. I scrolled through his Instagram a little bit. He has 2 very cute children.
It's so cute.
And he has 2 very cute dogs. I don't know. It's one of those things too as well where it takes a certain type of player to play in a market like Toronto. I think that's always been reiterated. I think we've reiterated that before on this show.
Yeah.
This show is just us repeating opinions.
Yeah.
Constantly. But and I think both Carlo and Scott Laughton are 2 guys where I think they have that capability to play in a market like Toronto. I mean, Scott Laughton's coming from Philadelphia, which just maybe it's a little bit smaller market. It's still a very tough team to play against, and it's a very tough market to be in because Philly fans are not ever normal about their sports. And Carlo has experience playing for Original Six team in a very tough hockey market in Boston. So I think, you know, I know Toronto is like another level, but they also do have an understanding of like the market, the team. They're excited to be here, excited to have them, and you know, it's really exciting. I think Brad Treliving did a great job on this deadline in terms of doing what I think we said in the way of like keeping the competitive window of this team with a possibility, you know, to how with the possibility to extend it by keeping like holding on to certain prospects. So you're not selling the farm, but you also are still improving the team in a way that's impactful this season. And now also as well with these players coming in with term, at least this season and next season, if not longer than that.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't sell the farm. You're holding on to Easton Cowan, who I don't know what he'll become. We'll see. You're holding on to, Ben Tamford. Okay, you had to give up Grabenkin and Mitten, but you also, it's not for a rental, which I think is what we were very starkly against, because you wanted a player with term that could extend your competitive window. And it's not like 33-year-old Braden Shen, who's signed till he's whatever, like 36, 37, whatever it is, at like 6.5. Like, that's stupid contract. So can't be mad. There was teams that did worse. So. And we will not talk about Mitch Marner because I think we don't have to.
No.
I don't give a shit about Mikko Rantanen almost becoming a Leaf. I don't think that was ever close.
No.
I don't think that was as close it was made out. I think that was our final stance on it is it was both teams making a decision, like both teams doing their due diligence and having a conversation. And then, and it was then Leafs reiterating, hey, Marner, we want you to stay, but if you don't want to stay here, we're going to give you an opportunity to get out. He said, no, I want to stay. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like there's nothing else I have to add to that. I don't know. We're sitting here in silence and we're just making faces at each other, but I don't know. I feel like
you to do.
Yeah, and I don't know why we have to talk about his contract now. I just leave it. I feel like we're talking about this too much.
When it gets sorted.
Exactly.
And there's no amount of talking about it and theorizing that's gonna get it sorted quicker.
Yeah.
And I personally think people on Twitter just need to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
But that's just me. What do I know? I'm just a girl who yaps about hockey all the time. Yeah, I will say, being stupidly busy with uni is working wonders for me just not having to see stupid people say stupid things on Twitter because I don't have time.
I had a really peaceful morning actually because I wasn't doom scrolling on Twitter before my class. But yeah, some other trades that happened around the league. Obviously, very notably, Marchand to Florida. I know we were just talking about the Florida Panthers earlier in the show, but oh my god, that one is crazy. For those of you who weren't around, because I don't know how new of listeners we have with the show and in terms of how new they are as hockey fans, but for those who weren't around, this is very much akin to when Claude Giroux got traded from Philly to Florida at the deadline as well.
Oh.
And it was very shocking, very off-putting. It looked wrong. And then he went to Ottawa immediately afterwards. And it looked right. I said this to Les, and Les and her roommate, I said this to them. I was like, Claude Giroux, young Claude Giroux, meant to be a Philadelphia Flyer. Old Claude Giroux, now, meant to be an Ottawa Senator. We do not talk about when he was a Florida Panther because that doesn't fit.
Yeah. It's just...
Right?
Yeah.
Brad Marchand meant to be a Boston Bruin. Him on Florida, I've seen the pictures from his press conference. It just looks wrong. It looks wrong. There's a whole situation with that. I will say, though, I will maintain a hater mentality because this is a Leafs podcast, and I've been preying on the downfall of the Boston Bruins since 2013.
Yeah.
So this is 12-year-old me is freaking out, aka having the best time of her life. But like Brad Marchand, I am so terrified though in the playoffs, and this is why I think the Leafs need to win the Atlantic in the playoffs, of running into a Florida Panthers team that can throw a line at you of Kachuk, Bennett, and Marchand, but
The
also
stuff of
has also
nightmares.
waiting in the wings for Hagee, Barkov, Reinhardt.
I don't want to think about it.
Yes, there's a lack of depth through the bottom, obviously, and you know, Bobrovsky is not quite the goaltender that he was last year. But and there's a lack of depth in terms, like, you know, they don't have Spencer Knight anymore, and there's a lack of maybe a little bit of, I mean, they have Seth Jones now, but like there's just they are lacking a lot of the depth that helped them win the cup last year, but they're still very dangerous and they can still ruin, you know, a playoffs for a team. So like very scared of the Florida Panthers, will say. Yep. Don't want to face them in the first round, that's for sure. And Marchand as well, like, got him for pennies. He went to Florida for pennies. He went for a conditional first round pick that is a conditional second that becomes a first if he plays in like 25%. I can't remember because like I've seen two different conditions on that pick. It's like either 25% of like the playoff games in the first two rounds or 50% of like playoff games in total. He is hurt right now, but he's like gonna start skating tomorrow, so he'll be fine. He's also like pennies against the cap as well. It's just one of those things where I'm like, like, I don't like it. I don't like it. I would have been perfectly happy if Brad Marchand was going to like Vegas or somewhere so we didn't like have to see him at all. Yeah. And I could just be like, I can forget his existence. He's no longer a Boston Bruin. Woo-hoo-hoo, whoop-de-doo that. I can't believe the Boston Bruins would do that. There was a lot that comes down to like a lot when it comes down to like just not agreeing on an extension. That was a huge discussion where I was like, that's crazy. I feel like we don't need to get that too deep into it because like, again, Leafs podcast, I don't want to spend forever to talk about the Boston Bruins and the Florida Panthers. I want to instead talk about Mikko Rantanen to Dallas. Where he is now signed to an 8-year extension worth $12.5 million. Not the 14 not everyone, but like he at least thought he was going to get. But for 8 years, in exchange for like a couple firsts, I think a third, and like Logan Stankoven. And some of that was, I think, there was a conversation surrounding that a lot of people, especially maybe from Canes fans, and I know they feel slighted because of what happened with Jake Guentzel last season. But I think there's a lot of mischaracterization of Mikko Rantanen in the way of it was not his choice, nor was he expecting to be traded from Colorado. He was not expecting that. I don't think no one was expecting that. Heck, that started because like that trade information started coming out with like Taylor Hall to Carolina, and I thought that was it. Like I was like, oh, Taylor Heisling, like, but like Mikko Rantanen was not expecting a trade to Dallas Stars, not to Dallas, to Carolina. I don't know if he wanted to go there. I think a lot of people were projecting in the fact that he would probably welcome the trade or at least appreciate it because of the number of Finnish players on that team. But I don't know if it necessarily was like I don't know if that necessarily was like an impact to how he felt about the trade, about getting to play with like Sebastian Aho and a bunch of all the other Finns who were on that team. But then Mikko Rantanen then, you know, is okay, well, what do? You have to re-sign him. And Carolina felt like they couldn't re-sign him, so then they trade him to Dallas where he does re-sign and he's going to be a Dallas Star now, which is another team with a lot of Finnish players as well. And he said you know, Carolina was not necessarily a team that I wanted to go to. He only wanted to go to about 4 teams in the league, and Dallas was one of them. So I think, you know, it was kind of maybe a misjudgment on Eric Tulsky's part. Not appreciate, but like I applaud him for making the ballsy move And
Yeah.
it didn't quite pan out 100% because I think definitely you lose a little bit with both those trades, just in terms of the fact of like Miko Rantanen, you very much it cost you quite a lot,
Mm.
and there wasn't necessarily like an equal amount of what you got back. Now Logan Stankoven will become a fabulous player, but that is just something to think about. And I think some of it was Miko Rantanen wasn't quite fitting with Carolina's system, didn't really match his style of play, which is again fair. And I think
Mm.
he's going to do well in Dallas. So that's my thoughts on. I don't know if you have other thoughts on Miko Rantanen.
No, I'm. You need to stop saying everything so well.
Sorry,
I'm just sat like cheering you on, like,
nodding
yeah,
along.
you make your points. You make the right points. But yeah, no, it's trade deadline is such an interesting time.
Yeah,
I'm gonna need like this weekend to just sit down and fully go over like every single trade that was made. Because I'm sure I've missed some like less interesting trades. But yeah,
oh, probably.
let's. But yeah, it's been a crazy trade deadline.
Yeah. It's been kind of a wild one. I think it's one of those ones where there's not been a huge, like, it's not been the same number of trades
Mm.
as we've had in previous years, but the names that have been traded are pretty big,
Like
which I think there was a
huge.
lot. It was kind of, again, morning of trade deadline was slow, as it always is. I think there's a lot of like expectation that it's going to be like nonstop from like 8 to 3 and it's going to be crazy, and that's never the case. And it picks up it picked up in the afternoon, and by the time we were getting to the last hour and then plus, because teams can get in line before 3 p.m. and then their trade is still good. Line, I mean like on the phone with central registry. They actually like a trade
Mm.
call is an actual physical phone call. I hope I don't know how much like new hockey fans know that, or even just like longer term hockey fans know that like the trade call is an actual physical call. And the NHL put
Mm.
some behind the scenes videos of a couple of the trade calls, including the one that we're going to talk about with it, which is Josh Norris and Jacob Bernard Docker to Buffalo Sabres in exchange for Dylan Cousins and Dennis Gilbert. That is a huge trade for both Ottawa and Buffalo. Buffalo obviously was looking to trade Dylan Cousins this year. That's no surprise.
Mm.
Josh Norris, though, for Ottawa was kind of a shocker just in the fact that he was a big part of that core for Ottawa, in terms of like they had their core of young players who they'd kind of spent time building a team around, and you trade that away for again another young player that could become a part of your core. But there's like the off ice like stuff that impacts where it's like Josh Norris was well liked on that in that locker room by that team, in terms of the fact that like many players have said in their media availability since that trade of like, he was my friend. I mean, Brady Tkachuk was basically on the verge of tears. Now we haven't seen anything from Thomas Chabot yet, but those two were good friends. Tim Sitzlin said that Josh Norris was a good friend of his, Drake Batherson as well. So it's like there's that young core of that team that you're kind of building around, and you traded a huge part of that. But I think with Dylan Cousins for Ottawa, you get more 5-on-5 scoring, which you need. You also as well get a player who is maybe not running the risk of getting as injured as easily, as Josh Norris has already had 3 shoulder surgeries in his career, and he is yet to play a full season healthy. So even this year, he's already missed time due to
Yeah.
injury. So he's yet to play a full 100% healthy NHL season. So it's a good move for Ottawa. It
Mm.
sucks to see Jacob Bernard Docker go, because he was a young defenseman in the Ottawa Senators organization who I quite liked. But there was, again, a logjam there on the blue line for Ottawa in terms of just you can't move Travis Hammonick's contract. He's on a full no move.
Mm.
Um, and I mean, Dennis Gilbert already has played a game for Ottawa and is looking great, so just something to talk
Yeah.
about. But yeah, we don't want to go too long because we have 2 segments to get to
Mm.
in terms of we have Kasey and Parker. So I'm gonna cut to those in the editing. Editing me is going to cut to them, and then we'll be back for the outro. We're now joined with Kasey, who is making her second appearance on the show and is the Offsides Oilers writer, also the co-host of the Pacific Division podcast in Offsides Podcast Network, The Coast, who's back.
Woohoo. Hi guys. Hello again.
Welcome back.
I don't know what order I'm gonna put these in, but so if I end up putting this in front of when we had Parker on it, because I did say to Parker, I was like, yeah, the trade deadline is for bringing together enemies on a Leafs podcast.
I am always happy to be an enemy because I'm a noted from the fourth line lover first and an enemy of the Leafs second.
Oh, stop it.
But yeah, so I know you had a couple of trades that you wanted to talk about, so I will let you take the lead on choosing which one you wanted to talk about first.
Okay, I feel like we should go a little bit chronologically because I need to save all my feelings for Fabian Zetterlund to Ottawa for last because I'm so upset. But Edmonton had a good deadline. I don't know how long I have to keep screaming this from the rooftops, but Edmonton once again has had a really good deadline acquisitions.
But you didn't get a goalie.
I don't care. Okay, I know and the conversation is tired. I don't like the fact that we have 2 backup goalies in our rotation. I would like a goalie as much as anybody else would. However, have you seen the asking prices for goaltenders nowadays? Have you seen the state of the NHL and their goaltender? We don't have goalies anymore.
Hey, the Leafs have goalies.
Okay,
yeah,
you guys have goalies.
Do.
You're being selfish. But no, the Oilers, much like last year, they didn't go out and get a goalie, but they got but they got the third line center that they needed and re-signed him to a very good contract. So they weren't panicking when everyone was going, "Oh my God, we need a third C this year for the playoffs." But no, with Trent Frederick and Max Jones coming in on the trade from Boston, which I didn't like in the moment because the Oilers have had a trend recently of trading all of their very young prospects, like Shane LeChance, who got sent to Jersey, which I hate. You get Trent Frederick, who can play basically anywhere, up and down in the lineup, which you need on a team as deep as the Oilers. He could play second, he could play third on left wing. I'm okay with either because the Oilers are in a very good position where they just keep getting to jumble their lineups and it works. So getting him on the team and also having 75% of his salary retained is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Max Jones is already an impact player because he's played 2 games. He has 2 points already. His first one off of a Corey Perry goal.
London Knights legend.
Most
winningest man in hockey.
Most winningest man in hockey, Corey Perry. That was his 14th goal of the season, like, mind you. Like, he's in top 10 of scoring on the Oilers, which I think is really funny. Because it's Corey Perry. But no, Max Jones, very good impact player. He's been playing bottom line minutes with Perry. Been a really good guy on the penalty kill. Instant favorite of the trade. I really like it. I don't know much about Peter Hauser yet, but from what I've heard, it looks like he's going to be a very good prospect, or at least guy that you can throw on the Condors. But I think my favorite part of this trade in their deadline was Jake Wallman, because Em knows this, because I was ranting to her about this. I was like, why do you get I was like, Wallman for first is crazy. But then I looked at the price that everybody else was paying for top defensemen. The Brandon Carlo trade comes to mind. Oilers had to give up a top pick because we weren't giving up another top prospect. So getting Jake Wallman for a conditional first 2026 first round pick, with the connotation of it being top 12 protected, which I don't think will be needed, and sliding to 2027 if the condition is met, or just being a 2026 pick flat out if they trade away their 2027 pick, which I think will happen because the Oilers are on a path to be doing quite good for the next couple of years. So getting a top 4 defenseman who already was making very big impacts in his passing ability and also laying out hits. He laid out a huge one on Mikko Rantanen in his very first game, which I thought was awesome. So I really like the Oilers deadline. It was exactly what you kind of need in the space that was given, especially since the Oilers are so like cap strapped going into this deadline.
Yeah, like because we talked a little bit about the Trent Frederick trade on like Thursday's episode because it happened Wednesday. Yeah, it happened Wednesday, so like we had the chance to talk about it. And I think what I really reiterated was like Trent Frederick's ability to play anywhere in your like mid to bottom six. You literally could play him anywhere in there and he will fit. And I think even like then I watched his like first media availability with Edmonton, where he was like, yeah, like they asked him being like, where are you most comfortable? And he was like, anywhere. Like I don't even know where I'm most comfortable. It's like wherever I play the best is where I guess I'm most comfortable, which is a great answer because it shows that he is like good to play anywhere. And also as well as like I think the amount of work that went into this is the fact that it's a 3-team trade to get that salary retention, like that twice-fold salary retention, means that I think Edmonton is expecting him to play before the playoffs in the regular season because he is hurt right now. I feel like that should be stated, but because if you only got him and he's hurt right now and he then is good to go for like, and he's only good to play in the playoffs, you wouldn't have done this extra like bring in like New Jersey into the deal and then traded away Shane LaChance if you weren't going to get all this retention on him. Like you would have just got the contract because he's a pending UFA, and then you sort out if you're going to re-sign him or not in the off season, but if he was only going to play in the playoffs because the cap goes away.
Yeah. And my thing is also like the Oilers, like I hate looking at schedule strength. I don't necessarily like love how it's set up.
I don't believe it. I think it's a myth. It's like the record with save percentage above and below 900. Stupid stat. I don't beef with that stat. It's the dumbest stat in the world because it's of course you're going to win more games when you get better goaltending, but also when you don't have great records with you don't have great records and you don't get great save percentage, it's sometimes not always on your goalie. It's sometimes because your defense is garbage. Ottawa.
Exactly. Yeah, but like I don't believe in it. However, in April, their last like 10 games, they play the Sharks 3 times. They play the Kings twice. There's a game against Anaheim. They play Vegas, and their hardest game that month will be against the Winnipeg Jets. So like you ease Frederick back into those games in April. You have the schedule, and like here's the thing. The Oilers tend to start scratching their guys in like the last 3 games of the season. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman, like basically the entire top 6 was scratched for the last like 2 games because it was just like, okay, it's like we play the Kings in the playoffs. We're gonna rest up even though we know how this outcome is gonna go.
we also know how the first round is going to go because
Yeah.
the same thing has happened the previous 2 years.
The previous 3 years, previous 2 years at that point. This year will be 4 years. This year will be the 4th time in a row that they're facing off in the first round. And I'm asking for the love of God, get me out of this fucking time loop. But no, I like, East Frederick back in those last couple of games, and he's going to be an impact player in the playoffs more certainly. But like, I can see the Oilers already re-signing him as soon as they can, once he gets a couple games in under his belt. But,
yeah.
No.
And also, this is something that I'm saying as someone, not to be like, I know a lot of, the reason why I feel like I closely watch Trent Frederick is maybe a little bit, not embarrassed. Look, okay, maybe it's a little bit strange that I'm like, yeah, he grew up with Joseph Wool. I pay attention slightly. Also, I have a penchant for bottom sixers. Why do you think the podcast is called what it is?
Why do you think we have a Blobbo of the Year award?
Yeah.
I can't wait to see who this year's is.
We're opening nominations.
I will be casting nomination and ballots for Connor Brown.
We're opening nominations, and then we, us, expert panel of judges, aka us, will be picking the winner. But we just wanted more submissions that weren't like Leafs, because we probably could find a Leaf bottom. Like, if it was up to me, it'd be going to Connor Dewar, but that's me being biased, so we can't do that. So we have to open it up to nominations. That form is coming. Yes. I finished the Google form finally for it, so.
Ooh. I'm so excited. I will be botting for Connor Brown. You can trust. Blorbo is a word that is banned from the coast, so I use it as much as possible as I can here.
But I watched Trent Frederick just in the way that I'm familiar with his game and stuff, and like he is somewhat like he's very much he's going to be a huge, I don't want to say huge because he is like a mid-sixer, but he's a great addition for the Oilers in terms of adding like defensive depth. Tell me if I'm reading the Edmonton Oilers right when I say he's going to be adding defensive depth through that like bottom half of the lineup.
Oh yeah.
Because your other option currently is Kasperi Kapanen.
Yes.
Tell me if I am reading the Edmonton Oilers correctly.
No, and you are exactly reading them right. It's very like, he will be a part of the defensive depth that is much needed.
And he can
especially
score
on
goals.
that. Especially too because an ideal thing is that you play him up with Leon Draisaitl and Vasily Podkolzin, because nobody really knows if they're calling Matt Savoy up for the playoffs. It's very just like, will we? Won't we? Savoy played really well with Draisaitl, but if you don't have him in the lineup for the playoffs, then you throw Frederick up there.
And the other thing with Frederick, and maybe it won't matter for the regular season, but maybe it will matter when we get like maybe it'll matter when we get like our Leafs Oilers Stanley Cup final that we've been championing.
Oh my God. Yeah. No, you have been
Trent
championing.
Frederick has a penchant for scoring against Joseph Wool quite often. So not that that has any effect for the rest of the regular season, but something to think about in the Stanley Cup final.
No, you have been pensioning for it. You and Cody say it to me, and I go, "Ew, no." And then I think about it for 5 seconds, and I go, "Yeah, but like I don't like it." But no, I like.
Hey, overall, it's better than like
really
what's
like
our other alternatives? It's better than like the other alternatives of like what, like Carolina?
Oh God, don't.
Oh, Washington. Oh, that's one for the sickos.
Yeah, no.
Oilers, Washington, Stanley Cup final.
Ooh. It's it's gonna happen. That's the thing. It's gonna happen because Dylan Strome is on that team. it is just going to be like that's just gonna happen. And somebody has a member, somebody doesn't. So that means that certain someone, aka Connor McDavid, will get his first Stanley
Dylan
Cup.
Strome doesn't have a member.
Does he? Did he not captain that team that went to the member? Because I know they won. They won the OHL trophy. I'm fairly sure he has a member.
Maybe. Oh no, they did win in the member. Never mind. Sorry, I'm thinking of the wrong year.
Spreading misinformation.
No, because you know what it was? I was thinking about the 2016 member.
Yeah.
Which is won by the London Knights.
Oh,
that's Mitch Marner's member.
Yes. No,
The one thing Connor McDavid can never win.
Yeah.
That
unless
he
goes back and coach. Yeah. Unless he goes back and coaches. Which I think would be really funny. He goes back to coach the Erie Otters, a la, and then he goes on to coach the Oilers years down the line, a la Chris Knobloch. But no, I overall very much like this trade. Rest in peace to Shane LeChance. I went all the way to Agonis Arena to watch you play in a BU Men's Terrier game as a scouting report. But rest in peace. And rest then yeah, San Jose sold everyone.
They did. It was one of those things where it was like, does Mike Greer know that he still has to like have enough guys on his roster for, a lineup? And then he acquired Vincent Descharnay, and now also, hey, he's got Noah Gregor back. Huge move.
He does. Noah Gregor is back.
He simultaneously traded for vibes and also like killed one of his star forwards via heartbreak.
Noah Gregor does bring vibes. He also brings a lot of speed and lack of finishing skill, which name about 4 or 5 former Leafs who have that exact same skill set. Miss you, Ilya Mikheyev.
Yeah. Ilya Mikheyev. Dallas legend. Oh my god. It was oh no, that was Lyubushkin.
Lyubushkin. Chicago's Blackhawk legend, Ilya Mikheyev.
Yes.
Vancouver Canucks legend, Ilya Mikheyev.
Yes, indeed. There's too many former Leafs. I get them confused. There's too many on my team where I don't remember if they ever played for the Leafs. No. No, San Jose I can't figure out because you still need. It's just because you're tanking for Matthew Schaefer, which they won't get. Just because you're tanking doesn't mean you can't send all your guys out.
No, it's very much one of those things too where it's Fabian Zetterlund isn't even that old. He's 25.
Yeah.
I did not realize he was less than 6 feet. Why did I think he was bigger than that?
He is 2 apples tall.
He is 2 apples tall. He's 25. And I'm just looking at stats now, and he's maybe having offensively, maybe it's not even though. I think he's playing. I think his offense maybe is actually better than it was. Yes. Yeah, at least his defense is better, and he's playing for the San Jose Sharks.
Yeah.
I say, and the only metric I'm going on with that though is his plus minus. But there's a considerable I think it's rational of me to think that when it goes from when last season he was a minus 34 and this year he's a plus 8.
Yeah. No, he's
not. I don't put a lot of weight into plus minus, but
I do when it helps my case. Jake Wallman had a very good plus minus, in his first game. I think he was at a plus 3, and I was like, I love plus minus. I love that stat. That stat has never done me wrong. But no, I don't know. Yes, Zetterlund gets to go possibly to the playoffs with Ottawa, but I'm just like,
Perhaps. I don't know at this point. I'm still on the
I-
fence. They're first in the wild card, but it's
how
so
many
close
times
still
before
in
has
the
that
East.
happened? How many times before
Well,
has
the
that
last
happened
time they
this
were
season?
the last time they were in the playoffs, but like this late in the season, it was in 2017 when they made the playoffs and went to the Eastern Conference Final and then lost to Pittsburgh because of a Chris Kernis goal in double OT.
Mm-hmm.
Game 7.
Yeah.
But I don't. But anyway, sorry. Yes. And then also like going the other way is Team Canada World Juniors legend Zach Ostapchuk.
Yes, legend.
That's 2-time World Juniors champion Zach Ostapchuk.
Mm-hmm. Yes, legend.
Legend.
Mm-hmm.
I actually who like. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
like
don't
the
know if
back end of the trade. I like the back end of the trade. I like what San Jose is getting. However, I don't like that they're giving up Zetterlund, especially when he's got like he's an RFA. Like he's an RFA at the end of this year, and it's like, I don't know.
You're giving Ottawa the opportunity to add like a really solid piece to the middle 6 of their lineup.
Yeah.
And to a team as well that also like has sometimes struggled to find that like spot. I should say.
Yeah. Like Ottawa
he's
gets
a left
very
winger,
good
and that left side for Ottawa has routinely been a little bit like thin.
Yeah.
On the left side, the left side. I hope Hockey DB is not lying to me when I say Fabian Zetterlund is a left winger.
No, I'm almost sure. From what I've seen, he's a left winger.
Right shot left winger too.
Yeah, like he's kind of the perfect package. But
I would love to see him on that like third line with like Shane Pinto, and right now it's David Perron. But David Perron's been playing on the left side. I'm trying to remember. Oh, Ridley Gregg. Like if you put him left winging that line of like it's like Zetterlund, Pinto, and Gregg as your third line. I like that third line. I like that third line a lot. And I think also as well as like you have like Nick Cousins is one of those guys who's out from injury. He might come back before the playoffs. I've heard some rumors about him that I don't want to delve into because I'm not Elliot Friedman, but I hear things.
You're not?
People tell me stuff. I'm not Elliot Friedman. As much as people
with how fast you type in the work chat to get us the Saturday night headlines, I'm not convinced.
I've bugged Elliot Friedman's phone.
Yeah, but no, I talked about the Wallman trade earlier, and Vitek Vanacek was traded to the Florida Panthers. They got Vinny Darnay. Nico Strum got traded to the Panthers. When am I gonna stop having players I like on my teams get traded to teams I hate? I followed Fabian Zetterlund from New Jersey to San Jose, and you're telling me I have to watch him on the Ottawa Senators now?
Yeah, that's pretty miserable. Sorry, that's just as someone who watches the Ottawa Senators, but I will say, and like going back the other way, and maybe this is me like overestimating Fabian Zetterlund's value. Actually, no, it's not, because I've watched Noah Gregor play hockey for like a full season on the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's fast. He's got speed, and he's really good at zone entries because he's so fast. But like he can't finish for shit. He has zero finishing capabilities, and so it's like then it reflects that. Like, okay, you could be like, well, look at like his underlying numbers are good or whatever, but like I don't know, his like actual point totals and stuff aren't great. And then the thing with Ostapchuk, and I like him, I do. In 43 games this season with the Ottawa Senators, I'm trying to pull this up here. Sorry. In 43 games with the Ottawa Senators, he has 1 goal, 3 assists for a combined 4 points, which I know when he has been called up and is playing games with the Sens, it's been like very limited, like bottom fourth line minutes, I should say. And so he's not actually scoring. He's mostly been relied on to play defense and as on a shutdown line. But like, and even like maybe his underlying numbers in juniors aren't like fantastic, but it's like you would want maybe a little bit more scoring capability. I know he's also only 21, but like you would want something like a little bit more like scoring capabilities if you are going to like trade away kind of a piece I thought was a fairly big part of the San Jose Sharks rebuild in Zetterlund. Like I thought he was one of those like older key pieces that was going to work in long term with like Celebrini and Smith and Eklund and maybe not so much Granlund now that he's been traded to Dallas because also he was older.
Yeah.
But I'm also trying to think of like other young players that San Jose has, and they have so many.
Henry Thrun.
Yeah, there we go. That's the guy I was forgetting was Henry Thrun.
Yeah, like
I actually probably could even just look at the roster here.
And that's the thing that like boggles my mind too, where I'm like, I don't understand because like he's close in age with all like the younger guys on the team, but he brings the experience because he was playing on team like in the Devil like with the Devils like in his rookie year and whatnot. Like I don't understand the trade from that perspective because I'm like, he's one of your young guys that you want to keep playing, especially one that has been scoring as much as he had been. So I don't really get it.
Yeah,
that's the one trade. I like a lot of these things in that they're able to pick up players, or they're able to pick up like picks and like by trading away players, but like this is going to be one of those deals that gets regretted, I feel like, from management.
Yeah, especially because it's like if you even look at like team scoring for San Jose, like Zetterlund's in the top. He's the 5th highest in team scoring. And like Granlund's number 3. He's not on the team anymore. He's in Dallas. So it's like it goes Celebrini, Eklund, Tyler Toffoli, and then Will Smith. Like of guys who are still on the team. Like even like Wallman was like just behind with the
Cody
6th most.
Ceci was in the top 10. Cody Ceci is still in the top 10 for scoring, and he hasn't been there since February.
Yeah, which is maybe like putting the bar like to like in terms of like, hey, maybe the San Jose Sharks are further away than we thought they were. I don't know what you guys have talked about on the coast, but it's like I've always given the lineup of like in like 3 to 5 years they're gonna be terrifying. But maybe we're looking more at 5 to 7 for that peak competitive window of like, this is when this team is going to be its scariest. And some of that comes from getting rid of Zetterlund, who's just a couple years older, who brings a couple years more of that maturity to this roster. And you've sent him to Ottawa, where that's a team who's in the playoff hunt like now. And it makes Ottawa better. And what Ottawa's given up doesn't make them worse. Right?
Yeah.
In terms of Gregor and Ostapchuk, in terms of the fact of like, there's guys in Belleville or there's other players on that roster who are, I don't want to say like at that same replacement level, but it is like, I don't know, you can call it like Cole Reinhardt or I'm now like blanking on like any like bottoms. Matthew Highmore's been called up for a while. It's like
for $1 named
those sort of guys.
Belleville Senators. Yeah.
Levi Haralainen.
Sam Gagner was there for like 5 minutes. But no, like
Donovan Sabrango.
I held the opinion that San Jose was going to be a very deadly team in like 3 to 5 years. I do think part of the regression will come in that fact and that statement because you're getting rid of like such key guys. Like I thought they were going to re-sign like Granlund and Ceci, and as much as like everybody hates Cody Ceci, he's not good. He's
Mr.
very
Game
much
7.
But exactly my point is like Ceci can be your depth defenseman. You throw him on third pair, he works fine there. You get him on a very cheap contract too. especially because
Yeah, and it's yeah, and especially because you want to elevate, like, Market Vlasic is. Sorry, that man is 37 years old. You need to let him rest. He's been there too long.
Someone
free Market Vlasic from San Jose. Never been.
And,
I don't even think he's ever been given a letter.
No, never been given a letter. Just he's always been there. He's been there so long. He's gone to the Stanley Cup final and lost, and he's still here.
It's one of those things too where it's like, I wonder if I can't think of any other player on any other team who's been there for that, who's been with a team for that long and hasn't been like a superstar. Like, I guess at one point Market Vlasic was like, yeah, he was at one point like a third. His career high in points is 39.
Mm-hmm. And he's making $7 million, which is crazy.
Yeah. So maybe, and like, he also blocks a ton of shots because he did just take that record from Mark Giordano, another man who just was around for way too long. Not even in a negative way. I'm just like, that is a 40-year-old man.
He was so.
Someone let
now
him
he's on
retiring.
Now he's on TSN.
Now he's on TS. Now he's on, like, he was on Trade Center.
No, he was, but he was in. You know how they used to do the This Is Sports Center, like, skit commercials? They had
that wasn't a commercial that aired during the one that you sent me. That aired during the broadcast.
I saw one that was a commercial as well. I saw him in a commercial, but no, I saw that one as well. I knew that was in the broadcast, but I had seen him in a TSN commercial as well.
Hey, fantastic. I think Mark Giordano is like the perfect guy to go on TV for the Leafs.
He's very
like not for the Leafs, but like for a guy who's played for the Leafs, I'm like, I like Mark Giordano. I was very impressed by his TSN debut. I thought he did great.
He did.
Love you, Mark Giordano.
I have my opinions about him. Connor McDavid hit bad, but he did provide very good analysis. However, I was more interested, as always, in, so what are they saying about the draft lottery? Because San Jose has 2 first-round picks this next year, and I'm just like, who do you take with those? Because we've discussed
Matthew
this draft
Schaefer.
Lottery bad. Well, if Nashville does not take him first.
Yeah, that's well. Hey, what if they win?
That's true.
It's one of those things where it's like, okay, yes, you have Cody Ceci as a debut sign, but it's like, okay, you want to elevate like Timothy Liljegren. Okay, well, you also have like Henry Thrun, you have Mario Ferraro, you have like Jack Thompson, who that's like another young defenseman who is probably going to be a part of your core going forward, or at least it seems that way. And so it's like, and also we cannot forget Sam Dickinson, who is currently on the London Knights, is also a Sharks prospect. And also they have Halttunen, who's also on the who's also a Sharks prospect on the London Knights.
Oh my God, they're turning into the Leafs.
It's never all about the Leafs. It's always about the London Knights.
Yeah. That's gonna be a great Coast episode in the future. Just do things. So what about the CHL? But no,
that's my thing. There's a young core of like players, and it's like, I just honestly would have thought that Zetterlund would have been a part of that. I always thought that there was room for him in that lineup. Yeah. Right? There was. No, I'm not crazy.
There was. He was always going to be a part of that team. He's going to be a team leader. The Sharks currently have too many assistant captains, but he was going to get like a leadership number in the future. It was almost like, it was basically like written like in the starts, because it was like, he's a very good player. He's a very good locker room guy. Very loved too, because you're looking at William Eklund not being able to speak to the press because he was so like and all the guys. That killed me. I was like, how do you do that to William Eklund? That guy is always smiling, and you made him the one time where he's like frowny face. terrible. But no, I'm interested to see what Ottawa gets out of having Zetterlund on their team, but we shall see. We shall see in the coming games.
So am I as someone who covers the team.
Yeah. Hey, and maybe if, God willing, somebody makes it to the playoffs, I'm convinced that the whole Eastern Seaboard is going to collapse before we see that, but perhaps Ottawa's in the playoffs.
Dylan Cousins said it best. It's close. It's closer to the playoffs than he ever was in Buffalo.
Oh,
Yeah.
which is saying something. Which is saying something. Oh
yeah,
that's rough. That's and now they've sent Josh Norris there.
They've sent Josh Norris to Buffalo. It's one of those things where I've still had to wrap my head around that trade because, again, it's in the same way as Zetterlund. Josh Norris was a core part, always seen as a core part of that Sens team. In terms of the fact is like when you're talking about big players who are part of your core and that young core where they had, because they were cultivating that young core for such a long time when they stopped making the playoffs. It's like, okay, so you have like, you have your Brady, you have your Brady, you have Brady Tkachuk, you have Tim Stützle, you have like Drake Batherson and Josh Norris. And like that was I don't want to say core four, but that was like that young core integral part of that locker room and about that team and that roster that you were kind of building around. And so to like to set like Josh Norris, who is to send him to Buffalo and to acquire Dylan Cousins, I think was huge in the way of like it was a statement made by Steve Stais in terms of the fact of like what previous front offices, which is Pierre Dorian, I can name and shame, have done before me, will like that necessarily isn't going to be always the best thing for the team. So it's like he's willing to make changes to those sorts of things. It is just weird being like Josh Norris is not an Ottawa Senator anymore because for so long he was, and he also is just like off the ice. That team, that locker room was so tight knit, and you could see it in the reactions from like multiple players.
Yeah,
Brady Tkachuk was one of them. Stützle, Batherson, like those guys, and like that's a big guy in the room that you have to then replace, and we may see that impact the Ottawa Senators in some way or other. It's just like you're losing. I don't want to say glue guys, but yeah, and maybe it's the same way for San Jose as well. And it's one of those things that always to like keep in mind when trades like this happen.
Yeah. No, it'll be interesting, and like locker room guys like are huge in some ways, but they're also like replaceable in some senses. But like I think in a case of like San Jose and Ottawa, that's going to be one where it's like it isn't as easy as you would think to replace, especially like if it's a locker room guy who has as much skill as those two players do.
Yeah, like it's much different to be like, oh yes, no more Justin Hall, noted locker room guy. He's in Detroit now. Okay, well that level of defenseman is very easily. Sorry, Marcie, I'm shitting on Justin Hall again. That caliber of defenseman is very easy to replace in your lineup. In terms of the fact of like, or even you can improve upon it. So then it's just finding another vibes guy or whatever, and it's. Whereas like, oh, here's a big skill. So it's like now like Dylan Cousins is coming into that team where it's like, on paper, if you look at just like their straight counting stats in terms of like goals, assists, and points or whatever, it seems like a very linear, like horizontal shift for the team, for both teams, I guess, in terms of like, no one like, okay, maybe, yeah, you're paying less money for Dylan Cousins now, like Ottawa is, but it's when you look at like 5-on-5 numbers or whatever, where you see how many more, like you see the increase in Dylan Cousins' number when in 5-on-5, which is where like the Senators have kind of often struggled scoring this season is on 5-on-5 situations. So you kind of want that change. And also another thing is like Josh Norris has had 3 shoulder surgeries.
Mm-hmm.
That is going to, and if we've seen it with Jack Hughes, that is going to be a health thing that's going to kind of fall. Not to bring up Jack Hughes again for Kasey. I'm throwing knives at everyone in this point that I'm trying to make. But it's like shoulder, that's a problem that kind of follows you, where it's like Josh Norris has yet to play a fully healthy season. He's yet to do it. He hasn't done it. So whereas like Dylan Cousins, Mr. Workhorse from Whitehorse,
who will never get to play who will never get to play with Gavin McKenna. Noted.
It's okay. This is how we draw out a World Championships roster.
I'm connecting the dots.
I'm connecting them. But whereas like Dylan Cousins, his health is, no, I'm saying this now as a fact, looking at historical numbers, because he could get hurt tomorrow and then everyone's like, well, you said. It's like, well, I don't own a crystal ball. Like his ability to stay healthy, or I guess even just his luck in how he's been able to stay healthy, has not missed a lot of time due to injury, is a huge aspect that the Ottawa Senators are maybe looking at in comparison to Josh Norris, who's missed so much time for them, to the point where it's like, okay, so why are we paying you this, like all this, why are we paying you nearly $8 million if you aren't going to be around to play, and we can't, we're constant. And like Josh Norris was hurt this season, and it greatly, like, yes, it was compounded by Shane Pinto being out at the same time, and then Brady Tkachuk was also out coming out of Four Nations, and you could see how like that impacted the Sens in terms of their ability to win games, because they were missing like 3 huge players in their lineup and on their special teams that was affecting their ability to win hockey games. So
yeah, it's
definitely we brought up Zetterland, and I was like, Ottawa.
No, but it's fair because it does context. Context,
and those trades also, as well as like the fact that they were both made, was very much kind of what I think a lot of people weren't really expecting Steve Staios to do, was to make huge, like 2 fairly major trades.
No.
I knew that if Steve Staios was going to make a trade, it wasn't going to be one of those ones where it's like a mid-round pick for some 7th, 8th, or like 13th for a 7th, 8th defenseman, or 13th, 14th forward, right? Like you were going to go out there and you were going to make an impact to your lineup, because you need something that you think is going to put you over the edge, because you're right there. And there's not guarantee of being right there is going to be close enough. Yeah. With how competitive the East is.
No, the East is, and that's the thing, is like if Ottawa does not get the acquisitions they need now, they're going to struggle for more years to come, because it's not even a conversation of, is the East just this bad this year? Because yes, in some regards it is, but it's like everyone is gearing up within the East to be competitive. You're not going to see a lot of teams besides Buffalo, because it's Buffalo, as a high picking, like taking those high picks in the draft.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be the Western Conference for the next couple of years, because it always ebbs and flows as the decades change, where one conference is stronger than the other. But
just in the way of like player moves, in terms of like trade, like the way the trades go, it's like, a lot, like right now it's a lot of Western Conference teams who ended up being the sellers at the deadline, unless you were the Pittsburgh Penguins. Who were the sellers at the deadline. So then they're having all these picks or young prospects. So give it a few years, and then it's going to shift back the other way. There's always this movement that's happening, that's going on within the NHL as well.
Yeah. So it'll definitely be interesting to see. My joke of a trade was that they were going to send if they were going to trade Josh Norris, they were going to send him back to San Jose. So the fact they sent him to Buffalo is a little bit worse. But no. I'm interested
Yeah.
to see how this will all play out.
I was fairly curious in one of those things where like I didn't really throw it out there like too seriously, but there were like at some point in the lead up to Friday, like Spencer's being like, okay, so what if we did like Josh Norris for Brock Besser? And I was like, that's crazy. But just in the way of I'm like, okay, you're also gonna be sending like Josh Norris to Quinn Hughes. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I don't think Quinn Hughes will complain about.
Mm-hmm.
But that was one of those ones where I'm like, I'm trying to see, I'm like, theoretically that makes kind of sense in my head.
Yeah.
But
that was a trade that was kind of like, I could see it happening, but then again, you hear Patrick Alvin going, oh, Nova wanted to trade Brock Besser for a first, and you go, interesting.
Yeah, no, like that was very much of, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Idiot Food means Saturday headlines.
Saturday headlines sent in by you because I don't know how your thumbs type that fast.
I also was playing a game of Cheat with my roommates and
one of
my friends at the same time.
That's incredible. I was writing my section of the trade deadline recap as I was playing Remoli last night because my parents were like, let's bring out the board, and I was like, well, of course.
Of course.
I'm like throwing out my poker cards, and I'm just like, and they're trading Zetterland.
Fantastic. Well, I think we have probably more than enough. I think this episode could end up being like 3 hours long by the time we put everyone's clips together.
It'll be a long one.
Oh no, I yap too much.
I
this is why
feel
you can't have me on the pod too regularly, because I just yap.
Hey, you've seen how long our episodes with Randy end up being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, with that being said, this is well, thank you for coming on. Where can the people find you on the internet?
I am at Low Score on Twitter and Instagram as well. But where you'll mainly find me is at the Coast Podcast on Twitter, where you can catch all our tweets about our podcast and get the links for the episodes that drop every Friday. We'll have a new podcast recapping everything that's going on within the Pacific Division, from game scores to off the ice notes. And we will have more history episodes coming out in the summer as well. So that's something fun to look out for in the absence of
I'm really
news.
excited about those.
Really
excited about those.
Yeah, and we will, of course, we have a whole episode coming in the future where you can find M on it, because we talk about the most winningest man alive.
The most winningest man in hockey. He's won everything.
Corey Perry.
The man who's won everything. But yes, it sounds like you've done that elevator pitch before. Incredible. It was so well done.
It's like I'm a natural at this point, and like I totally won't be doing it more times in the future.
Yeah. With that being said, thank you, Kasey, for coming on. And I don't know where this is going to go in the episode in terms of what clip is going to come after this. So I'm just going to stop the recording here. Hello, we've got Parker with us, who is one of our writers at Offsides. Our writers, the writer, one of a.
Parker is the writer ever.
Because you cover the New Jersey Devils. If I probably should have looked this up beforehand.
I do. Not very often. But technically that is my title.
Yeah. See, I don't make things up on the internet. But so you do have a couple of trades that you wanted to talk about from Friday, which was a scary day for everyone. But so floor is yours in terms of which one you want to discuss first.
I guess we can start off with Cody Glass, because that's like that's of all the players the Devils received, that's probably the one I like was most familiar with beforehand. And like I feel like basically Cody Glass, for those unfamiliar, is, along with Phil Tomasino, is one of those guys that was on Nashville and then left Nashville and immediately got better. So he was I think I looked this up. I was doing all this last night. I looked this up. I think he was like a bottom 6 guy, but I think he was doing pretty well in Pittsburgh. And now he's a Devil, and I think a lot of people were disappointed because they didn't really make like a big top 6 move, especially now that Jack Hughes is out. But I'm like, I was familiar with Cody Glass. I thought he seemed like a sweet little guy. I constantly forget that he's not like, oh, Em, you're frozen.
No, I'm fine.
I constantly forget that he's not
it's
like
my terrible Wi-Fi.
Oh. I constantly forget that he's not like 21 or 22. He is 25. He was drafted only like 5 places behind Nico Hischier. He's married. He had a rookie living in his house in Pittsburgh. Like he's a grown-up. But basically I was kind of like, vibes-wise, I'm like, oh, like he'll be fun or whatever. And even like a lot of New Jersey's reporters like apparently immediately started getting texts from reporters in Nashville and Pittsburgh of like previous reporters that had interacted with Glass, being like, oh, like he's such a nice guy, like he's so cool and nice or whatever. And I thought that was really funny. And also he got a hat trick in Nashville, I think. I'm like envisioning the video and I'm like, he was wearing yellow. That does not help me remember if it was Nashville or Pittsburgh, but I think it was Nashville. Yeah, and he cried and it was really sweet. Basically, fast forward to today. It's his first game as a Devil, and he scored the first goal of the game, the only goal in the first period, and then in the second period, Eric Holla scored. And that's pretty crazy if you've been following the Devils at all. God, do you guys have like now I'm like, oh no, what if a Canes fan like clips this?
No, well, I've said some pretty like heinous things on this podcast in terms of like talking shit about other teams. So if someone wanted to like clip like this and then have me saying something really terrible about like, I don't know, I think it's usually like the Islanders is maybe one of my like main teams I go after. So you'll be fine.
Like, a Canes fan will like come and clip me saying that Eric Holla that I'm shocked that Eric Holla has a goal.
Oh no, you're fine. The amount of shit I chat, I'm very surprised.
I'm not like, oh my god, I'm worried somebody will be offended. I'm like, oh my god, I'm worried somebody will like use this to like validate. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, so Cody Glass, cool, good addition, good vibes. Apologies to Owen Pickering, who now has to find a new place to live.
No, I thought I read that he's still like gonna just stay in Cody Glass's house by himself.
Well, because I think he also, actually, do you have a Pittsburgh fan coming on? Because I think Pickering's like kind of bouncing back and forth between the NHL and the AHL. When I looked him up, it said he was a WBS Penguin.
Not currently, but maybe it's one of those things where it's like, well, if Matthew's free today or tomorrow, we can have him on.
Yeah.
But, noted
Matthew,
Pittsburgh Penguin.
Talk about Owen Pickering. Oh, actually, I was talking to Matthew about this. The return for Cody, I mean, so we got Cody Glass and a prospect, and I think we gave away a couple of prospects, and
a third in 2027.
And a third in 2027. I do not keep track of the picks. It's so bad. But
no. It's fine. I just have his Hockey TV page open and I'm looking at his list of trades, including when he was traded 1-for-1 with Nolan Patrick.
Jesus Christ. Oh my god.
Because
Okay.
it's one of those things where it's like that's like the thing that's like a piece of like Cody Glass lore that I feel like gets like glossed over just a little bit because it has nothing to do with him and he didn't do anything like to like not warrant it, but like you know what I mean? Like it doesn't
Wait, so
really
was he a
it
flyer?
involves him.
No, wait.
No, he was it was when it was like with Nashville. It was when Nolan Patrick went to Nashville after being in Philadelphia.
Nolan
And
Patrick
then went to
to
Vegas.
Nashville? Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. Anyway.
He never played a game there because he was like there.
That's
He was
wild.
traded with Philippe Myers for Ryan Ellis from Philadelphia.
Oh my god.
But
no,
like then
so,
the next
I
day was
generally
flipped
feel
for Cody Glass, so I think there was like retention there or something. But
okay. No, speaking of Philippe Myers, I generally feel like I keep a pretty close eye on the Leafs. But basically when I went to the Devils Leafs game with Avery, I was like looking at and I was like, who's Philippe Myers? Because I'd never heard that name before. And Avery, so I went, who's Philippe Myers? And Avery went, oh no. And then the Devils scored their first goal immediately. Yeah, but basically, Glass was traded for Chase Stillman, who okay, this is veering into talking shit a little bit. Always struck me as more of like, I don't know, he just kind of looks kind of like boy bandish and is not super impressive. I think he'll be good in a couple years, but like it's one of those things where like some people are very attached and it was like a bit of a controversy on my Twitter timeline.
I'm looking at his stats and they're not like blowing me out of the water.
Yeah, I just remember him because when I went to a preseason game, I had actually the preseason game I went to at Prudential Center, he was like the only one that came out after the game, like walking out and like talked to fans, and then like one or two other players stopped their cars. So that was sweet of him. And I didn't go up to him because I didn't remember his name. And then I was like, I remembered it after a couple of minutes, but I was like, let me like leave the space for people who actually know who this is. Cause like he did have people actually wanting to talk to him. And then when I went to a preseason game in Philly, I had a sign for a different player, and Stillman was like the only one that like saw it, and it had way too many words on it. So he was like trying to read it, but in the moment, like I said on Twitter, it was like he gave me the homophobic dog look because he just looked so confused and a little bit disgusted.
Too many words.
It was too many words.
Oh, dear.
So anyway, I will remember him for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say like my thoughts on like New Jersey, I guess I don't want to say like they kind of had to add to their forward group, but like I think losing Jack Hughes means that you kind of have to make some addition to your forward group in some way, whether that be calling someone up or whether that be through a trade. So like I don't know, I like Cody Glass.
They tried calling people up, it did not go great.
Yeah. I was like, I think he's like a solid, like bottom mid sixer.
You know what's crazy? Actually, this is a good segue. For the AHL paper transactions thing where they had to like players had to be on the AHL roster at 3 p.m. even if just on paper, and then they could like get called back up immediately. They did that for Daniel Sprong, but they didn't do it for Shimon Nemitz.
So like
Shimon Nemitz can't go back to Utica for the rest of this season, which I'm upset about because I am going to see Utica on April 9th, and I have not seen Nemo, and he is He's not like a favorite of mine. He is my phone background.
Because we are purely an audio show. It's not the first time someone has done a visual bit on an audio show. I was guilty of it
Okay.
like
I will
a week
explain.
ago.
It is Shimon Nemitz. I don't know which, like, not to brag, I don't know which international tournament this is from because he's been in so many. But he's in his team Slovakia uniform, so it's like the blue helmet and the fucking gigantic European logo right on his forehead. Because European teams do that so much. I don't know why. Anyway, in the blue uniform, and he is holding a hockey stick, blade up, with the tip of it in his mouth.
They clearly didn't.
That is your audio. That is your visual description.
That's
fantastic. And he's just like,
brilliant.
I'm so mesmerized. He's like, there's literally nothing going on in his eyes.
Oh.
Anyway, so Daniel Sprong, in exchange for some sort of picks, you had a list, right?
2026 7th.
7th in 2026.
Yes.
Yeah, so Daniel Sprong, who I'll say last made headlines in like December, when I'm like, now I get to rant about the Milwaukee Admirals in the Devils section. In December, he was sent by the Kraken down to the Coachella Valley Firebirds, who are a good team. They knocked the Milwaukee Admirals out of the AHL playoffs last year. I'm still mad at them, and he got me mad on their behalf because he was talking about like, oh my God, I'm like too good to be here, and like, I don't want to be here and whatever. And I don't know if I'm imagining it, but I thought there was like video of this, and then I couldn't find the video. So my conspiracy theory about Daniel Sprong is that he has Taylor Swift's publicist working for him, and she scrubbed this video off of the internet.
I will back you up on that because I thought I saw a video. If it wasn't like a press conference, it at least was like him doing like a media availability and someone was taking a video of it.
Yeah, it was something like that. I didn't watch it because it pissed me off already. I was like, but I feel like I remember a video. Yeah, so he's here now. The advanced, again, there's a Devils game going on right now. The advanced stats people are tweeting saying that he's doing pretty well. So I will give him the benefit of the doubt, I guess. But watch it. Daniel Sprong, if you're listening to this, watch it.
Yeah, I always forget,
I was
Hello?
gonna say, I feel like he's never really found a place to fit in.
Yeah, and maybe his attitude has something to do with that.
Not to put the locker room cancer like label on a guy, but have we considered?
Yeah, and like I don't know. Like in most cases, I like try not to judge because we're not like
in the room.
But I feel like saying what he said in public is like very, very like that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like even with like,
and I think it's
like with like.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I think like it's crazy just because it's like we're so used to seeing like the humble like, oh, I'm just here to work hard sort of like attitude from players when they like, get asked these sorts of questions.
Not to get into Canucks business, Kay, forgive me, but like even when everybody knew that there was tension between Pettersson and Miller, like I could be wrong, but I feel like when Pettersson and Miller talked to the media, they were still like they weren't like broadcasting that there were issues going on, because that's how you conduct yourself like an adult, even if you don't like somebody that you're playing with or you don't like your situation or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think we're just very used to this, like, media trained facade of hockey players, and so to see a guy like I guess do it like, it's nice when players are honest, but it's like, dude, like, maybe you shouldn't say that you're too good for the AHL because
Yeah,
you got sent down to the Firebirds on like this season of Seattle Kraken, who are obviously a team that's like somewhat struggling, right? So it's like, oh, if they're sending you down, then it's very obvious that you're also struggling, because
yeah. But also, like, I already had the AHL website open, so let me see, because Coachella Valley was like really, really good last year. Oh yeah, they're at the top of their division again. I was gonna say, I don't know if that was like primarily what's her name? Jessica Campbell, who went to work on the Seattle Kraken. But yeah, they're still at the top of their division, so they are a very good AHL team. And I don't know, now I'm like kind of like protective. I feel kind of protective, especially like if he goes to Utica. I'm like, actually, this was the same thing where like when they were talking about where Rantanen was gonna go, and I was like, Mikko Rantanen, if you come to the Devils and you look, and if any of our goalies are struggling and you look at them, I will stomp you to death with my hooves. Because I'm like, do not, I can't believe he said, I'm like, I don't even know what team Georgiev is on now, and I'm like, how can you say that because I should give context. In the Amazon series, there was like a clip that had no audio, but it was very clearly Rantanen saying to Georgiev, I'm gonna fucking kill you. So that
I
wasn't
love
nice.
when people are nice to their goalies. I
Be
love when
nice to
people
your
say
fucking goalies.
it's like, how can
Georgiev
you
is in
look
San
at a
Jose.
goalie and be
If
like
he has been treated without us
mean?
knowing.
Especially like if you
No,
look
like,
at Georgiev, he's got like
if you Google picture of him,
got big brown eyes. How could you be mean to somebody with big brown eyes?
It's
it's like a
horrible.
Bulgarian horse. But like,
Is he Bulgarian?
yeah,
Wait, hold
he's
up.
from Bulgaria.
Oh, the Devils won. Ooh, Dawson. Cody Glass is a wizard. What do you mean Eric Holla and Dawson Mercer are scoring?
Things are turning around.
Like, my whole thing is that, like, at the trade deadline and stuff, and I think it's kind of like my thoughts also, like, not to like get into like the Dylan Cousins, like Josh Norris trade, but it's like one of those things where it's like people are like, oh, Dylan Cousins good? I'm like, well, yes, he just played for Buffalo. Like, I think if we could get like, I think we could probably get like that entire team off of Buffalo and they will suddenly become much better players because they play on like for the Buffalo Sabres. Have we considered?
Yeah, didn't the reverse happen to somebody where they were like, oh, somebody got traded to Buffalo and he got put on the power play, and then he was like witnessing in real time how bad Buffalo's power play was.
Yeah, it was Bo Byram.
Yeah.
Because it was
Experiencing
like,
the
oh, they
horror.
don't practice that hard. Because he was coming from like Colorado.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's crazy.
But yeah.
Free the Buffalo
also
Sabres from the Buffalo Sabres.
Maybe we just need to take the Buffalo Sabres out of Buffalo. Have we considered?
My mom went to college in Buffalo, so I'm like, let him keep their hockey team.
True, yeah. The getting to go to like a game with your friends is really fun when you can do it for like fairly cheap.
Yeah.
Go Sens. See, now that's gonna get clipped.
Actually, it's funny because she went to she did like the second half of her high school in Rochester, and then she went to college in Buffalo. So sometimes I'll like tell her things about the Sabres franchise and she like doesn't care. Like when it's the Devils, she'll like nod and be supportive because that's my team. But when I'm like, oh, and Buffalo's do, she's like, okay. Especially because it's Buffalo, so it's never something like, it's never like, oh my God, they like went on a 10,000 game win streak and they're gonna be like they did so. It's never like, oh, they did so well that they're making like a new bigger President's Trophy to give them. It's always like, oh, their goalie went on a Finnish interview show and said that my goalie asked him to fight.
Oh dear. Buffalo Sabres, am I right?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say we can talk about Brian Dumoulin.
Let's talk about Brian Dumoulin. So it's been funny, especially not to name names, but the Devils reporter Daniel Amoya has been like reporting on new players' names, like clearly reporting on new players' numbers, like clearly very cognizant of how people are going to respond when a new player is assigned a number that was like recently held by a player who left. So it was initially reported that Dumoulin was going to be number 6, which was John Marino's number.
Which I'm sure everyone reacted to that very calmly.
Yeah. And then he turned out that Dumoulin is now number 2, which was Brendan Smith's number. We miss you, Peepaw. But then I'm gonna be wrong, and I really should have done some more prep work. But then Amoya had to announce that I want to say it's Sprong got number 10, which belonged to one Alexander Holtz. And literally in the tweet, he was like, Sprong is going to be wearing number 10, and then like in brackets, Ducks. Yeah, so shout out to Holtz, who is in the AHL, but I think recently got a dick trick.
Nice. Fantastic.
And then who else?
Well, Kovacevic got an extension, and then there's I don't know. I just also.
I'm like thinking. As I'm thinking
down like there he is. Utica deals.
What? Oh yeah, we lost to Neil Missiol, who was actually. Anyway, yeah, again, Missiol, not that important. I will just remember like random like flashes of the preseason. Anyway, but also it's funny that I didn't forget the Kovacevic extension, but I'm like staring off into the distance at my Kovacevic jersey, and I'm like, so yes, he got 5x4 million or 4x5. Yeah, 5x4 million. So that might end up making things difficult for Nemo, but consider that I like Covey a lot. Because so basically when he was a Hab, they had like a country night and they did a walk-in question that was like, who's your favorite country singer? And literally everybody was like Morgan Wallen except Kovacevic and also Alex Newhook were like Tyler Childers. And I'm like, I like the way that man thinks. And then he was a Devil.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be. And also so it was There was a question of like, would he possibly be traded? Because now we're starting to have a bit of like a logjam, and I'm like, I will, like, I just got his jersey. I will have the crash out. Like, I know this happens to everybody every goddamn day, but I have one jersey. I will have the crash out to end all crash outs. So I'm glad that that's. Oh, also he got like crazy trade protection.
He did.
I think he got like a no move and then for 3 years and then like a 10 team no trade list or something like that for the last 2 years. Like that's wild. I love him. I hope he sticks around. I kind of almost have the same haircut as him, but like it's whatever. It's fine. The cap is going up. Like I'm not going to complain. Get that bag.
Yeah, I don't know. There's like certain contracts where like you forget that they have like no move clauses and stuff, and you're like, man, this guy like sucks. Why haven't we really done anything about like getting rid of him? And then you look at the contract and you're like, because we can't.
That's why.
You know who doesn't have one of those? I don't think he has one. He's on like a 1x1. He definitely doesn't have trade protection. Nathan Bastion's trade protection is that nobody else wants him.
Wait, isn't he getting played like, isn't he getting like top 6 minutes or something? Or am I crazy about Nathan? Or am I like not being,
I don't know
am I
about
not right?
top 6 minutes, but definitely too many minutes.
Has he become one of like Sheldon Keefe's favorite guys?
No, he's like one of Fitz's favorite guys. Like he was drafted, so he's a 97. So he was drafted in like 2015.
Yes.
He's been with the Devils the entire goddamn time, except for when Seattle got their expansion draft, the Devils didn't protect him, and Seattle took him and then threw him out, and the Devils took him back. What was I? Oh, his minutes. So that'd be on ESPN.
Oh my goodness. Like, I don't know, because it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know, because Marcie and I are very familiar with Sheldon Keefe's habits, I should say.
Yeah.
When it comes to coaching a team. So he finds his like 1 or 2 guys that are like his guys that he just like throws into situations. So for a very long time in Toronto, it was Justin Hall and Alex Kerfoot who would just get thrown into situations. And you're like, you should not be in this situation, but they're there anyways, and you like almost don't want them to be.
Yeah, so I'm looking at it. It looks like he's been getting like, this is throughout his career, like not just under Keefe. He's been getting like 10 to 12 minutes. Actually, in 2018, so like his average time on ice has gone down because it used to be like 12, almost 13 minutes. And then this year it's been like 10 minutes. So Keefe the thing is, I guess it's a roster construction thing because it's like at a certain point, like, you could, like, it's not like you really have anyone else. Like, this guy has just always been there. And, like, there's not, like, a whole lot of, alternatives. I'm like, how much does Curtis Lazar play? Because
Sens legend Curtis Lazar.
I'm like, oh, it's gonna show me like a list of all the teams he's been on. Like, I actually don't know that list. Okay, wait.
Curtis Lazar, weirdly, he's one of those players where I'm like, yeah, you've always been a New Jersey Devil, but then you actually look at like where he's played, and it's like, no, he hasn't. He also was like,
I was gonna be like, he bounces a lot, so he had 2 separate stints in Ottawa, 2 separate stints in Calgary, 2 separate stints. The only team.
No, he just had 1 stint in Ottawa. He just got sent down at one point to the AHL to play for Binghamton.
But it said he played 4 games in Calgary that year. Oh, wait, no,
Yeah.
that's okay. That's never mind. That's like, oh, why do they do it like that? That's so weird.
know, I looked at
Okay,
Hockey
so I'm
DB.
misreading this. He must have like gotten traded in the middle of that season, but like it makes it look like he left and then came back. Anyway, yeah, so just like we have the
He
bottom
was
six
part
that
of the
we
Taylor
have.
Hall to Boston trade. Curtis Lazar was part of the Taylor Hall to Boston trade.
Oh, I was gonna say, you know who else was traded for Taylor Hall? Kevin Ball, who then went on to
Ottawa
get us
67's legend Kevin Ball.
who then went on to get us Jacob Markstrom. Because that makes sense.
Calgary Flames. What an organization.
I think he's been doing well. Oh my god, I feel bad. Our Flames writer has been, or not has been, but like when the trade happened, I feel like she was taking my jokes about Kevin Ball like a little bit too serious. Like, I'm just saying whatever.
You say whatever to say whatever.
Like, I only remember his name because he has good eyebrows. Like, I am not like an analyst of this man.
I only knew his name because like when you go to Ottawa 67's games, there's this huge big mural, and in it is like every Ottawa 67 who's ever played like an NHL game, or like, and then they have like pictures and stuff. And so it's like Logan Couture, Tyler Toffoli, like Travis Konechny, Kevin Ball. And like
So funny. He was on
Marco Rossi.
He was on Team Canada for the World Juniors in like 2019 or 2020, and like there's just this
2020.
one photo that every time I look at it, I'm like, Jesus Christ, what? Like, but it's so funny because it's like the photo that's on I can stop talking around him. The photo on Nico Dawes' Instagram, like like I'll go back to it like every couple of months and like recognize more people in it. It's like him, Kevin Ball, Jamie Drysdale, Quentin Byfield, just like a wild list of people. And like there's still like 2 or 3 guys I don't recognize. So like maybe in 2 months
You'll get there.
I'll like come back and like recognize the last 2 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I haven't been following Calgary, but I think Ball's been like pretty good in Calgary. Like when I looked it up once in like December, probably.
I think like I don't know. Like I don't know if I think people were ready to be like really negative about Kevin Ball because of like what he was able to do in New Jersey, which was not a lot.
Yeah.
But he is already having a career year in points.
Good
and
for
he's
him.
taking way less penalties.
And also he's a dad now, which is fucked up.
He's 24.
Yeah, his actually apologies. I mean, the photo and the announcement I think were leaked before him and his girlfriend like wanted them to be, because like somebody pulled something from a private Instagram somewhere and was like, oh my god, like Ball's girlfriend had her baby, like, oh my god, like there's a baby now. And then like 3 weeks after that, there was like an official announcement from the Devils, but then he was traded like 2 days later. He was traded right before his birthday.
Ooh. That's like the
Not
worst birthday present ever. Like, oh, happy birthday, you're being traded
to Calgary.
to Calgary. Pack up your life and move to Calgary for your birthday. That's what you want to be doing.
But it was so funny because like I was envisioning it as like, oh no, he's literally gonna have to like pack up his life and like he was in New Jersey all summer. Like it was an off-season trade. He was in New Jersey all summer. Like he was still hanging out with Curtis Lazar.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh my god, actually this would have worked better with last year's Devils. But I had this pitch that was like the New Jersey, like especially like the guys with like partners and families and stuff. It's like the New Jersey Devils as whether or not I think they use New York City public transit, because I think Lazar had talked about like getting on the path with his family to go into Manhattan, and I was like, I feel like Brendan Smith's wife would be scared of the MTA bus. I don't know her name, I just had that feeling. Like, I don't know anything about Brendan Smith's wife. He just seems like somebody that would be married to somebody that was scared of the MTA bus. And he seems like he would use that as an excuse for he would be scared of the MTA bus, but like be like, oh, my wife doesn't feel comfortable, to like blame it on her. Anyway, that was a failed pitch that never happened.
It should happen. I would be so interested in just reading that and being like, you know what? Never thought about it.
Because I don't, because it feels mean, because it feels like a lot of like targeted assumptions. Like, did you ever see that TikTok of like basically somebody was taking the train, like the commuter train from Connecticut, like into New York, and then switching to the New York City subway, and she literally like the big caption on the TikTok was like, when you get off Metro North and get on New York City subway train number 6, and it's like her like super obviously twisting her wedding ring around so that like the stone is like on the inside of her hand, so like people can't see it. And that was really stupid, and that lady rightfully got flamed. It feels mean to look at unrelated women and be like, you seem like you would do something like that. So that is why that pitch is not going to happen.
Oh, rest in peace.
Rest in peace. I do want to do something like public transit related.
Alright, you can just like start like assigning like, I don't know, New York Rangers to like New York City like subway lines.
Like that's the thing. I think it was because there was a pit, because initially I did do the Devils as exhibits in the Liberty Science Center, and then like I wouldn't take the lead on a Rangers pitch just because like we have Rangers people that like love that team.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do like Rangers as like, again, this would have been better when they still had Trouba, but Rangers as like different museums in New York City, and then I think somebody said like Leafs as like Toronto subway stops.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I already have like a couple in my head where I would be like, yeah. Because if you college has these like 2 big murals in it, where it's like one side of the tracks is like very like not abstract, but it's like they don't have like the exact logos, but it's very obviously it's Leafs players, and the other side of the tracks is a mural of like Habs players.
Ooh.
Because like college is one of the subway station, like it's like College Station is like where like Maple Leaf Gardens is. So.
Yeah, and like for actually, I almost said something, but I'm like, ooh, this is a secret. So I can tell you when we're off the air. I can tell you when we're off the air, but I don't want to like give something away, because this is an article that has been pitched and approved and is going to happen.
Gotta keep everything on the down low. Yeah. But yeah. I mean, unless you have something else to add, I'm just like trying to keep an eye on time because we do have to get like 4 other people in this episode.
Oh yeah, shit,
in our
sorry.
like very parent teacher-esque type
Yeah.
like trade deadline where we're like, it's like parent teacher interviews, but like offside writers.
What else was I gonna say? I think Grebenkin to Philly is gonna be fun. Sorry to the Leafs. I think that's gonna be a fun player on a fun team.
Yeah.
And he's gonna have
like,
fun.
That's
and also
thing, it's like
friend for Michkov so that they don't have to hang on to fucking Zamula.
Yeah, and especially as well because like I'm not gonna be like, well, at least now they have Michkov, like they have like a translator for him. But it is also helpful, even just like bench communication, where it's like one of the things with Grebenkin that's been talked about over the past year, because he did like this is his first season playing North American hockey, is that like throughout the season from like preseason, because I did watch him play in preseason in Ottawa this year, all the way through to like now, like his English has gotten better to the point that like he's done media availabilities a couple of times, like when he was called up to the Leafs, and then he also like has done quite a few like with the Marlies and things like that. So it's like there's that level of like, oh, on ice and on bench communication, like having that.
And like Zamula even said like in an interview, he was like, I'm being relied upon too much, or maybe Tort said this, that they were relying upon Zamula to like translate and like interpret for Michkov to the point where it was like negatively affecting Zamula's game and his like
yeah.
I don't know what I don't
want
want
to those
like,
things where it's
dramatic
like
to say mental health, but like it was like he's only like 23, I think. It was stressing him out.
Yeah. It's like one of those things that's like, you know, when you're on like an airplane and it's like, well, you gotta like, and then they're doing like the safety brief and stuff, and they're like, and in a case of emergency and sudden decompression, you may have air mass that drips from the ceiling. Please affix yours before helping the person next to you.
Yeah.
It's like that, but like NHL players translating stuff on the bench for their teammates.
And you're like, what other trades do I want to
It's a terrible metaphor for me to make, I think, maybe.
Like, is it too late to talk about the Askarov trade?
You mean the thing that happened during the preseason? Because he was like...
It was during the off season. It was in August.
Yeah.
But, like, who else was I think? But also the fact that, like, the thing about Askarov going to San Jose is that earlier in, like, June or July, they had sent Igor Afanasyev's RFA rights to San Jose in exchange for Ozzy Weisblatt, who had already been on loan to the Admirals, so like he was already there. And Afanasyev was like basically Askarov's friend and translator when he first got to North America, because Afanasyev, I think, had been here since he was like 14. So he was doing a lot of translating. And they sent his rights to San Jose, but then he decided to go back to the KHL instead of signing with San Jose. And then Askarov got sent to San Jose like 2 months later, and I was like, they're like ships in the night. But also, and then Askarov ended up being like super close friends with I'm gonna butcher this, I'm so sorry. Shakir Mukhamadullin.
I think it's Mukhamadullin. I don't worry. I'm actually like known for absolutely butchering names.
Anyway,
on the show.
They're really close, and they were like living together. But also the fact that it was like him for Magnus Chrono was like and Nashville, like we watched Nashville like find out about Tessa. Like that was so funny.
Oh, I love Tessa.
She's hilarious.
Icon.
Huh?
A true icon.
Yeah.
But
all right.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't want to take up too much.
If that's all. we can end it here. Well, end your part here. I'm not gonna do like a full intro, but like, where can the people find you besides like offsides?
On
Okay,
Twitter.
what's your Twitter? Where can people find you on the internet?
If you can't find my Twitter, you're maybe just not pure of heart. Like, if you're pure of heart, my Twitter handle will reveal itself. No. I say Garden State Parker, but like the state is just ST. So it's Garden and then ST Parker. Like the Garden State Parkway. Which is a very important concept to my culture and my country of New Jersey. And well, yeah, if you find that, then if you're like obsessed with me, you can dig around and find the Substack that I don't write on anymore. Yeah.
Fun. Fantastic. Well,
Go
we
to
don't have a budget.
Read my stuff about the Devils and also the Comets. And also I might see about covering the Admirals for the AHL playoffs again. We will see.
Yeah. We do not have a budget, but if we did have a budget, you would be receiving a puck like taped up in the mail. So congratulations on making your Form the Fourth Line debut.
Thanks. It's great to be
Big
here.
moment. Thank you for coming on the show. Because yeah, it's always fun when we get people to like talk about teams that like aren't the Leafs, because like we may know a lot, but we do not know everything. And so there are people
Which is hard
who
to believe, I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you. All right. We're back. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to those two parts that we had. Thank you again to Kasey and Parker for coming on the show. A little bit of a weirdly edited one. That's on me, and that's my work to do in terms of getting that work done. I did this to myself. I could have done this so much easier and not done it this way, but we did it anyways. This is definitely going to be a little bit of a longer one for sure, but it's a trade deadline. Only happens once a year. So thank you guys so much for listening. We will be back on Thursday with another episode. Yes. I don't know. You're squinting your eyes. I know we had some scheduling things to work out.
Yeah.
But I think we'll be back on Thursday.
I think I'll have to check my timetable, but I think we'll be back on Thursday.
We'll be back on Thursday with another episode. In the meantime, you can find the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find the show on Twitter, where you can never miss another episode, at From the Fourth Line. That's fourth with the number 4 TH. And if Twitter decides to go down again in the meantime, reminder, we're also on Blue Sky with like the same handle. We just never really use the show Blue Sky account because it's a lot to update 2 socials at once, and I tend to forget.
Yeah.
That's on me. But in the meantime, you can also find some of the trade deadline coverage done by Offside News over at offsidenewsco.com, or also you can find the website on all social platforms at Offside News Co. You can find Marcie and I between episodes because we're absolutely hilarious. Or you can get more like hockey analysis from me. I will be tweeting about tonight's Leaf game well past my bedtime. So maybe it might get a little bit delusional. But you can do that at 60 Leafs for Marcie, at Paraview1 for myself. We'll be back on Thursday with another episode. In the meantime, go Leafs go.
Go Leafs go.